Deep in the heart of the Lone Star State, where the highways stretch into infinite horizons and the heat waves dance on the asphalt, lies a different kind of Texas. Beyond the bustling metros of Dallas and Austin are pockets of the past where the air feels heavy. The shadows move independently of the light, and the locals offer a polite but firm warning: keep driving. These aren't just ghost towns. They are places where history curdled, where tragedies left permanent scars on the soil, and where the silence is far more unsettling than any scream. 10. Indianola, the port city that nature erased. If you head toward the Gulf Coast, you might find yourself looking for Indianola. You won't find much. Once a thriving port city that rivaled Galveston, Indianola was effectively erased by two massive hurricanes in 1875 and 1886.
A hurricane decimated the town and killed almost 300. It was rebuilt only to be obliterated again. The storm formed east of the Lesser Antilles and moved northwestward. It hit the Dominican Republic and Cuba as a Category 2 before intensifying over the next 10 days.
Locals say the tragedy never truly left the shoreline. The creepiness of Indianola stems from its sunken nature. At low tide, the remains of foundations peek through the water like skeletal fingers. Those who fish near the old ruins report the sounds of phantom bells ringing underwater, a remnant of the town's original churches. It's a place where the wind always seems to carry a salt-tinged sob, reminding anyone who lingers that the ocean eventually takes back what it's owed. 9. Toya, the town of whispering windows.
Toya is the oldest town in Reeves County, dating back to its founding in 1879, when W.T. Youngblood moved his family from Midland to the area. Toya used to be the home for many families in its earlier days, not to mention that many businesses thrived in the small town as well. However, that changed when families began expanding out of Toya for different parts of West Texas, decreasing the population significantly over time, to now there are under 100 people currently living there. And as you look across Toya, you can see the history that was left behind with the abandoned buildings, rusty nails from old homes, and cars full of rust.
Toya, located in Reeves County, is a masterclass in atmospheric dread. While a handful of residents still call it home, the vast majority of the town consists of beautifully preserved but hollow buildings. The crown jewel of its eerie reputation is the old Toya High School. The school stands as a massive brick tomb for a bygone era. Locals and ghost hunters alike claim to see the silhouettes of children looking out from the upper-story windows. What makes Toya especially unnerving is how it feels frozen in time. In some abandoned houses, calendars from the 1930s still hang on the walls, and chairs are pulled up to tables as if the families just stepped out for a moment nearly a century ago. 8. Thurber, the company town that closed its doors. In the early 1900s, Thurber was a bustling coal mining hub owned entirely by the Texas and Pacific Coal Company. It was one of the first cities in the world to have total electrification. Then, the industry shifted to oil, and the company decided it was cheaper to dismantle the town than to maintain it. Today, all that remains is a towering smokestack and a few brick structures that feel deeply out of place in the scrub brush. The vibe in Thurber is one of intense isolation. Locals in the surrounding area tell stories of the Red Ghost, a figure seen wandering near the old cemetery where many miners were buried in unmarked graves. The town's sudden, forced death left behind a residual energy that makes the back of your neck prickle the moment you step off the main road. 7. Helena, the town too tough to die, but it did.
Yep. So I wonder if it's on the roof. Well, this sounded like he was in this room. And there's gonna be hooping and hollering if something comes out chasing me.
It's in the left corner, I think.
Yeah.
It's okay, we mean you no harm.
Yeah. Don't start no trouble, won't be no trouble. I ain't kidding, bro. That was fucking loud. I can't even talk, dude. And it was after I asked questions and was...
Helena was once known as the toughest town on Earth. It was famous for the Helena duel, where two men would have their left hands tied together and be given short knives, fighting until one was dead. The town met its end not through a storm, but through a curse. After a wealthy rancher's son was killed in a brawl, the father vowed to kill the town. He gave the railroad free land to bypass Helena, and the town withered away almost overnight. The skeletal remains of the courthouse and post office stand as monuments to a violent past. Walking the dust-choked streets, you can almost hear the echoes of the rowdy saloons. Locals avoid the area after dark, claiming the ghosts of the duelists still settle their scores in the shadows. 6. Marfa, the mystery of the desert orbs.
It was like a fireball. It was like right in front of me.
You'd see them dance a little bit toward the horizon. Sometimes they would merge and separate.
One light seemed to start shrinking in size and coming down, and his son said, "Look, Dad, that one's landing."
There was this huge ball of light. It split into two, and then suddenly the light was all back into one, and it was coming towards me.
I've seen them. I thought I saw something. To me, it's kind of like a twinkling off in the distance. You kind of think you see something, and it does look like twinkling lights out there. And they come, and there's nothing out there. Nothing out there. That's been well documented.
The scientists and skeptics will say that this is either an optical phenomenon or some sort of a piezoelectric effect, whereas those who are not inclined to a scientific explanation will talk about ghosts or UFOs or something else of the kind.
Marfa is famous for its art and minimalist vibe, but long before the hipsters arrived, it was known for the Marfa lights. These aren't your typical ghost stories. They are unexplained aerial phenomena that have baffled scientists for decades. While the lights themselves are a tourist draw, the town has a lingering, eerie stillness. The vast, empty desert surrounding it feels like it's watching you. Many locals won't go near the viewing area alone at night, not because of the lights themselves, but because of the missing time people frequently report. There is a sense that Marfa sits on a thin spot in reality where things from elsewhere can occasionally peek through. 5. Jefferson, the most haunted town in Texas. Jefferson is the quintessential Southern Gothic nightmare. Once a major river port, it lost its status when the Red River Raft, a massive logjam, was cleared, causing the water levels to drop and the boats to stop coming. The town is home to the Jefferson Hotel, where the dolls of the dead reportedly move on their own. The town's history is steeped in Reconstruction-era violence and tragic deaths. Many residents of Jefferson grew up with ghosts as neighbors. It's common for locals to tell you who is living in which historic house. The air in Jefferson is thick, not just with humidity, but with the weight of thousands of souls who refused to move on when the river dried up. 4. Terlingua, the Mercury mine grave.
What is Terlingua, Texas? Is it a ghost town? A place of ruins and memories, haunted by the miners who died pulling treasure from these hills? Or is it something else? A vibrant, living town, a refuge for artists, musicians, and entrepreneurs, all who've built a life here at the end of the road? The truth is, it's both.
Located on the edge of Big Bend, Terlingua was a mercury mining town that became a ghost town after the mines dried up in the 1940s. It is a place of rock, heat, and starlight. The most unsettling part of Terlingua is its cemetery. Because the ground is so rocky, many of the graves are shallow mounds covered in stones and simple wooden crosses. During the Day of the Dead, the town comes alive with celebrations, but the rest of the year, it belongs to the desert. Locals say the spirits of the miners still roam the old shafts, and the sound of pickaxes hitting stone can be heard echoing from the ground on quiet nights. 3. Rusk, the hospital on the hill. Rusk is home to the Rusk State Hospital, which was built on the site of an old penitentiary. The transition from a place of punishment to a place of healing created a dark cocktail of spiritual residue. The town itself feels overshadowed by the massive, imposing structures of the hospital. Locals tell stories of the screaming woods nearby, and the general consensus is that the energy of the land is sour. There's a specific kind of quiet in Rusk, a guarded silence that suggests the residents are well aware of the history behind the hospital walls and prefer not to speak its name. 2. Saratoga, the Ghost Road of the Big Thicket. Saratoga is nestled in the Big Thicket, a dense, swampy forest in East Texas. The town itself is small and unassuming, but it is the gateway to Bragg Road, also known as the Ghost Road. This 7-mile straight shot through the dense woods is home to the Saratoga Light. Unlike the Marfa lights, these lights often approach cars, dancing just out of reach. Legend says it's the lantern of a decapitated railroad worker looking for his head. The locals in Saratoga are weary of the legend, but they won't drive the road at night. The thicket is so dense that if you step off the path, you might never be found, a fact that adds a layer of real-world terror to the supernatural lore. 1. Yorktown, the hospital that never sleeps.
Ghosts or paranormal activity. This month, we're going to take a closer look at some of the alleged haunted locations across South Texas.
This week, our Erica Hernandez and digital journalist Adrian Garcia went inside the Yorktown Memorial Hospital. The place has been abandoned for decades, but is it really empty?
Yorktown Memorial Hospital was built in 1950 and was closed in the late 1980s. On this evening, we were expecting to get a tour of the hospital, but instead, we were told we would be exploring the place on our own.
It is about 8:20, and we're about to start our investigation.
We first headed toward the maternity area. Last time we were here, a doll in one room started unexpectedly talking to us.
Oh. That thing is talking.
This time they were quiet, but we would return later in the night. We nervously began to walk through the first floor hallways. One of the first rooms we came across was filled with all kinds of toys and dolls. As we walked away from the room, one of the dolls started talking.
Oh. That thing is talking.
Oh my God.
We're inside the chapel now, here inside Yorktown Memorial Hospital. This is one of the hottest spots for paranormal activity, even in the daytime.
At the top of the list is Yorktown, specifically the Yorktown Memorial Hospital. This abandoned Catholic hospital is widely considered one of the most terrifying places in the United States. The hospital was run by the Felician sisters, and the legend goes that over 2,000 people died within its walls during its operation. Today, the building is a shell of its former self, filled with rusted medical equipment and decaying religious icons. Locals warn travelers to stay away because the shadow people of Yorktown aren't shy. They are known to follow visitors out to their cars, and the feeling of being watched is so intense that even seasoned paranormal investigators have fled the building in broad daylight. In Yorktown, the past isn't just a memory, it's an active, aggressive presence. Texas is a land of legends, but these 10 towns prove that some legends are best left unvisited. Whether it's the phantom bells of Indianola or the shadow people of Yorktown, these locations serve as a chilling reminder that the frontier never truly died. It just stopped breathing. The frontier never truly died. It just stopped breathing. And in the following locations, that bated breath is almost audible. To understand why locals in these pockets of Texas whisper warnings to outsiders, one must look deeper into the soil, where the blood of the Old West and the sorrow of industrial collapse have fermented into something truly dark. Texas is a land built on extremes: extreme heat, extreme violence, and extreme faith. When a town dies in Texas, it doesn't fade away like a New England village covered in ivy. It parches. It bleaches under the sun until only the skeletal remains of its sins are left for the wind to whistle through. The psychology of the Texas no-go zone. What makes a Texas small town uniquely creepy isn't just a ghost story, it's the isolation. When you are standing in the middle of a place like Toya or the outskirts of Terlingua, the nearest help is often 60 miles of cactus and heat haze away. This geographic vulnerability creates a primal fear. Locals who have stayed behind in these dying towns often develop a protective, almost territorial relationship with their ghosts. They aren't just protecting the town from you, they are protecting you from the town. In places like Yorktown, the dread is clinical. The Yorktown Memorial Hospital stands as a monument to the failure of medicine and the weight of final rites. When the Felician sisters ran the facility, it was a place of transition. Today, that transition feels stuck. Visitors often report the sensation of being tapped on the shoulder or hearing the squeak of gurney wheels on linoleum that hasn't seen a wheel in decades. The locals in Yorktown don't go there for thrills. They know that some doors, once closed, should stay locked, the unseen residents of the Big Thicket. If we move east toward Saratoga, the horror shifts from the clinical to the primal. The Big Thicket is a biological crossroads, a dense tangle of pine and cypress where the light barely hits the forest floor even at noon. This is the Ghost Road territory. The Saratoga light isn't just a flickering orb, it is a localized obsession. Some locals claim it's swamp gas, methane, but those who have seen it up close describe a pulsating, blue-white light that seems to possess a curious intelligence. It follows cars. It retreats when approached. The creepiest part? The road was originally a railroad track built by the Santa Fe Railway. When the tracks were pulled up, the energy of the transit remained. People have reported seeing phantom steam engines silhouetted against the trees, trains that have no tracks to run on, moving silently through the mud. The silent sentinels of Helena. Then there is the vengeful silence of Helena. The story of the father who killed the town by redirecting the railroad is a classic Texas tale of hubris and spite. But the haunting of Helena is more than just a lack of trains. The old courthouse still stands, and within its walls, the temperature is said to drop 20 degrees even in the middle of a triple-digit July. Locals in the surrounding Karnes County tell of the White Lady of Helena, a woman who supposedly lost her husband to one of those brutal knife duels. She is seen wandering the tall grass where the saloons once stood, searching for a man who bled out in the dust over a century ago. When you walk through Helena, you aren't walking through a park. You are walking through a graveyard where the headstones were replaced by buildings. The industrial decay of Thurber. Thurber represents a different kind of Texas nightmare, the company town ghost. In its heyday, every brick, every loaf of bread, and every breath taken in Thurber was owned by the Texas and Pacific Coal Company. When the company decided the town was no longer profitable, they literally tore it down. The 128-foot brick smokestack that remains is a lonely finger pointing at a sky that has forgotten the town. The Red Ghost of Thurber is said to be a miner who died in a structural collapse. His body never recovered from the deep shafts beneath the town. People living in the nearby town of Mingus claim that on stormy nights, the smokestack glows with an internal fire, as if the ghosts of the miners are back at work, fueling a furnace that hasn't burned for 80 years. It's the horror of being owned even in death. Why the locals say stay away. When a local tells you to stay away, it's rarely a threat. It's a piece of hard-earned wisdom. These towns are repositories for the state's collective trauma. The energy of unfinished business. In places like Indianola, the deaths were sudden and massive. Thousands of people were swept away by the sea in hours. The land hasn't processed that grief. The harshness of the landscape. In Marfa and Terlingua, the desert itself is the antagonist. The creepiness comes from the realization of how small a human life is compared to the ancient, shifting sands and the lights that dance above them. The preservation of sin. In Jefferson, the town's history with the Civil War and the subsequent lawlessness left a stain. You can paint over walls, but you can't paint over the memory of what happened in the cellar. The creepy factor of these towns is heightened by the modern world's encroachment. As highways get faster and GPS gets more accurate, these towns remain off the grid in a spiritual sense. They are the glitches in the Texas map, the haunted legacy of Rusk. Rusk deserves a deeper look because its darkness is layered. Before the hospital, there was the prison. Before the prison, there were the bloody skirmishes of early settlement. The Rusk State Hospital is a massive complex, and the locals speak of the shadow people of the ward. Unlike other ghosts, these are described as two-dimensional voids that move across the walls. Residents of the town have reported seeing these shadows in their own homes, as if the darkness from the hospital is leaking into the surrounding neighborhoods. This is why the warnings in Rusk are so sincere. The locals believe the town's history is a contagion that can follow you home. Conclusion: the Lone Star Shadows. Texas is too big for all of its ghosts to be accounted for. For every tourist trap like the Alamo, there are a dozen places like Toya or Yorktown where the history is raw and the atmosphere is jagged. These 10 towns are the dark heart of the state. They represent the parts of the Texas dream that curdled under the sun. If you find yourself driving down a Tulane blacktop as the sun begins to dip below the horizon, and you see a sign for one of these locations, remember the locals' advice. The no trespassing signs aren't just for legal protection. They are a courtesy to the living. Some parts of Texas were meant to be settled, and some parts were meant to be left to the wind, the dust, and the things that move in the dark. The spirit of Texas is often defined by its bravery, but in these towns, bravery is replaced by something else: the quiet, shivering realization that we are never truly alone, even in the most abandoned corners of the world. The silence of a Texas ghost town isn't the absence of sound. It's the presence of 1,000 whispers you aren't quite meant to hear.